What's going on, everybody? Good morning on this Wednesday. Hope you guys are doing well. It is the Wednesday after the NFL trade deadline. Usually, Wednesday is the day where I take a look around college football at some of the highest, best performing prospects from the most recent week, but we're going to do that a little bit later today, maybe even in the evening, because this Wednesday is there's a little bit more going on because we just had the trade deadline and the Seahawks actually did acquire a fairly significant piece. So I want to spend a little bit more time on this, and I want to talk about some other things as well that I pushed back from Tuesday because Tuesday was the deadline. So I want to talk a little bit more about Rashid Shaheed here. I want to go into him a little bit more because, I mean, that was not a nothing trade we made. We made a pretty significant commitment here, and I want to talk about it. Be right back. All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you about Sleeper, a one-stop shop for all your sports needs. You can celebrate and chat on sports games in real time with other users. You can get the fastest scores, blazing fast sports news and sports alerts right at your fingertips. And of course, you can use Sleeper to play in fantasy leagues and win real money on picks contests. This is the way sports were meant to be enjoyed together. So download Sleeper today. Use promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. And you can pair that with another promo they have right now where you can get a $20 entry free with no deposit required. So get both of those things going. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and growing. So check out Sleeper today. Get to it and go have some fun with sports this year. All right, welcome back. So I want to talk about this one a little bit more than we did yesterday. We covered a lot of the basic stuff with the Shaheed yesterday, but I feel like there are some people out there that don't totally grasp what this guy is bringing to the table for the Seahawks. And I do think that most people understand this is not a rental, or at least it's not intended to be a rental. I don't think you give up a fourth and a fifth for a player if you're planning on renting them for half a season. But to be clear, I imagine this is a player that the Seahawks are going to look to extend and make part of their team for the next few years. Now, that extension, I think, is going to be noticeable. It could be like a 3-year, 36, 3-year, $39 million deal, but he is worth that. When you take a look at other players in the league like him, he is worth that. And if you doubt that, go look at what Tutu Atwell got last offseason and consider the fact that Shaheed is also bringing some special teams value to the table. But I think one thing that people miss with Shaheed is they view him as a kind of a Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They kind of think that we're hoping to get out of Shaheed what we thought we were getting out of Scantling and didn't get, which is to say a deep threat and really not too much else. Basically a guy who takes the top off of the defense a few times a game and provides kind of a threat without actually making plays personally. And I don't think that's what we're dealing with here. I don't think this is a Marquez Valdez-Scantling situation. This guy has proven and has, at the very least, been projected to already be better than that. I mean, look at the career so far. So 2022, he's a rookie, and he's an undrafted rookie, by the way. Not a big part of the offense. He still gives you almost 500 yards. Okay. Not a big-time player yet, but 2023, which is currently his best year in the NFL, over 700 yards. And if you count rushing yards, he gave you over 750 yards. And if you look back at that Saints offense in 2023, they had Chris Olave, who played basically the whole season. They had Alvin Kamara, one of the best receiving backs in football. And that Saints team actually had Michael Thomas for about half the season as well. Now, it wasn't the Michael Thomas of old, but it was still an effective and useful Michael Thomas. So there's only so many passes that can possibly get thrown to a player like Shaheed. Okay, so even in that circumstance, and by the way, he only played 15 games. He actually missed 2 games. If he plays all 17 games, you're almost certainly talking about 800 yards plus. And again, this is as a second-year player who's also giving you a lot on special teams. That's probably also impacting how much he can give you offensively. Okay, 2024, he's on pace for a 1,000-yard season. He is. He actually was great to start the year for the Saints. He was on pace to give you just under 1,000 yards receiving and also do some stuff rushing. He was looking like a 1,000-yard player, and then he got hurt. So there was an indication even then that this was going to be maybe not a high-volume receiver, but not a low-volume receiver either. This was not one of those guys who just runs go routes a few times a game to scare the defense. No, this was actually a guy who was on pace to become a prolific producing receiver in this league. And then you have this year. Now, he was on pace for a little under 1,000 yards. He was 9 games in. He had given the Saints about 500 yards. Remember what the Saints offense is, though. Excuse me. Saints offense with Spencer Rattler and that offensive line, it's very much hit your back foot, get the ball out of your hands over and over and over again. And that is the opposite of what Rashid Shaheed's game is by and large. That is not an offense that is built to take advantage of Shaheed's strengths. The Saints had to do it because they don't trust their offensive line and they're trying to keep things easy for their quarterback. Understandable, but you're losing something with Shaheed when you run an offense like that. And he's still producing and still would have given the Saints over 900 yards if they had him the whole season. So this is not a Valdes-Scantling type situation. It's not, I don't think it's Tyreek Hill, of course. Tyreek Hill is a super speedster who also became an ultra high volume receiver in this league. But it's definitely beyond what some people are thinking. I think there was this impression that, oh, we just got like a number 4 receiver who can provide some, basically a threat to the defense, but not much else. No, there's more going on here than that. Now, if you take a look at Pro Football Focus, if you take a look at not their grading, like forget about the grades. We don't care about that right now so much. Forget that. I want to look at their more objective numbers here first, right? I want to look at slot versus wide. Now, in 2023, he did play almost half of his snaps in the slot, but every year of his career, he has played a majority of his snaps as a wide receiver. So there's no concern that this guy's like a slot merchant. There's no concern that this guy's going to cramp Cooper Kupp style. This is an outside receiver by and large. He's lined up on the outside 62% of the time in his career so far. And this most recent season, he had lined up wide about 61.5% of the time. We don't have to worry about, oh, we don't have enough slot snaps to go around. That I'm not too worried about. And also, going back to the Valdes-Scantling comp, Valdes-Scantling, his big problem was he dropped the ball too much, right? He had bad hands. We're looking at Rashid Shaheed here. Look at this. He's got 2 career drops. This guy has dropped 2 passes according to PFF in his entire career. And how many times has he been targeted according to PFF? Do they have that here? Yeah, 211. So his drop rate per target, and I understand that sometimes targets don't even get to you, but that's less than 1% of his targets ending in a drop. And if you care about the grades, look at how well he was graded in the drop category. So Rashid Shaheed has really great hands. That's another area where he separates himself from a typical deep threat only receiver like Valdes-Scantling. Even Deshaun Jackson. Deshaun Jackson, one of the great all-time deep threats in NFL history, really. His catch rate was very low because he was a deep threat guy, right? And when you're a deep threat guy, you're going to have a somewhat lower complete catch percentage, but Shaheed's catch percentage is actually 65.4. That's pretty reasonable. That's pretty good. And I mean, you look at the ADOT, you can see that when he's at his best, he is getting targeted deep down the field. And his least impressive years, at least in terms of like big plays made, have been the years where he's been targeted closer to the line of scrimmage. So it is true that he's a big play threat, but that is not the only thing that defines him. This is a guy with great hands who can be a reasonably high volume player. Now, in this Seahawks offense with JSN, is he necessarily going to be? No, but my point is, I think people have pigeonholed him as a guy who catches 2 passes a game, takes the top off, and that's it. And clearly that's not the case. Now, one area that PFF has been pretty down on Rashid Shaheed on is his run blocking, and especially this year, but in general, he's never come in very strong as a run blocker. So, anyone out there who was thinking Rashid Shaheed makes Cooper Kupp redundant, this is probably an area where Cooper Kupp is going to continue to be valuable. He's a good run blocker, and Shaheed seems like he's not. And I think that that is consistent with his reputation and what I see when I look at him. It's not really his game. So I'm not really thinking about Shaheed in those terms. But here's the number one thing that I want to talk about with Shaheed, because what he really brings is beyond any individual statistic or anything to do with Shaheed directly. It has to do with this. Now, this is Next Gen Stats over on Amazon. And what I'm looking at here is the percentage of time each running back in the NFL faces 8 or more defenders in the box. Basically, this can be kind of parlayed out to produce a stacked box percentage, how often your team is dealing with a stacked box. And here's the thing. Right now, the Seahawks have the number 3 and the number 7 highest stacked box rate faced by 2 different running backs. Charbonnet is 3rd, Walker is 7th. They're both facing a ton of stacked boxes. Now, I don't have the exact splits here, but I believe that if you combine Charbonnet at 42.5% and Walker at 33%, it would come out somewhere around 37 to 38% of the time the Seahawks are running into a stacked box. And I can pretty much guarantee you that is the highest number of any team in the league. If not, it's very close. Like, you can see New England's up here as well with Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, but they're still nowhere close to where Seattle is. Seattle has 2 guys in the top 7. And what we take away from that, and this is something that other people have said as well, and it's true, Seattle is facing the highest percentage of stacked boxes in the entire NFL. And that's allowed JSN to have the big season that he's having in part, but it's also a big reason why the Seahawks don't run the ball. You can't run the ball effectively against a stacked box most of the time. It's just not reasonable. There's a reason why they stack the box. They stack the box to stop the run. That's a big reason why they do it. So now, before, opposing teams were looking at the Seahawks and thinking to themselves, okay, JSN's great, but he's not some... They didn't look at him as a traditional dynamic downfield threat that they needed to double cover and guard over the top all the time. Cooper Kupp, not really that kind of player. Not anymore. Not somebody they have to think about defending deep down the field. Horton, rookie. He's got some downfield threat ability, but rookie, they're not going to take him super seriously. AJ Barner, more of a blocking tight end and more of a possession tight end. Arroyo, rookie. Like, these are not guys that were forcing defenses out of the stacked boxes. Rashid Shaheed is the guy that can force a team out of a stacked box. When the other team looks across the field and they see JSN on one side and Shaheed on the other side, they're going to have to reevaluate the way they defend it. If they stack the box and Shaheed runs a go route, what's going to be in front of him except for green grass? If there's no safety back there, he's just going to run past his man most of the time. And with the way Sam Darnold is throwing the deep ball so far this year, maybe the best deep ball thrower in the league other than Drake May, it's going to go a long way. All right. So that is the main thing he's bringing here. With the addition of Shaheed, the Seahawks should be able to run the ball effectively. Not just run it a lot, not just run it consistently, but actually be effective. And that's worth a lot. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. More videos coming soon.